Okay, so yes, I know. Different video, different setting, different area. Why? Mind your business. I'm just playing with you. I'm actually on vacation right now at my parents' house, and so this is where I'm going to be filming for right now because I needed to get some filming done, and so I brought my equipment with me. This is not the best lighting, but we're just gonna go with it because this is what I have to work with. I am sitting on the floor. This is my old bedroom that I had when I was in high school. It's not even, it doesn't look the same. My mom redecorated everything, so there's that. Okay, so this is weekly reading log number 8. I think I did 7, which I'll link in the card symbol above. But we are here to talk about the things that I've read in the past week. I actually have not been reading that much because 30 and 30 is also taking place right now. So at the time that this goes up, I think my 30 and 30 vlog should be up. And if it is, I will link it in the card symbol above if you want to know all the manga that I've been reading. I haven't read any comics or graphic novels outside of that. So that's pretty much, you know, how I always do, like my comic section in the beginning. There's nothing. There's nothing besides 30 and 30 has completely taken over that portion of the video, so we're just going to go ahead and move past that. But I did end up reading a couple of things. A great portion of what I read this week, y'all, was for live shows that I had Friday and Saturday, which it just happened to work out where I had commitments this month. I have quite a few commitments this month. And so that's what I was primarily reading for. The one thing that I did end up reading that was not for a live show at all was Momo Arashima, Steals the Sword of the Wind, and this is by Misa Seguira. This was a very interesting middle grade book. I listened to this one in audio, which was a fairly long audiobook. It ended up being 11 hours long, which was not what I expected, but it's almost a 400-page middle grade book, so that's why. This is definitely for fans of Rick Riordan, or the Rick Riordan Presents books, but this one is primarily focused on Japanese mythology. So this book focuses on 12-year-old Momo, who is a tween that is really struggling to fit in school. She doesn't really get along with a lot of kids at school, and she is kind of like a primary caretaker for her mother. Her mother is constantly ill and does not really support Momo in the way that Momo needs support. And I think it frustrates her. She's irritated, and then all of a sudden she starts seeing this fox. And she's like, okay, well, what's up with the fox? And she comes to find out that her mother is a Shinto goddess that used to protect this kind of spiritual land realm that she no longer does because of some decisions that she's made in the past, and she pretty much gets banished by her father. Well, now as a result, there are some demons that are trying to pretty much get loose, be on the run, and these same spirits are trying to get to Earth to destroy it. And so Momo essentially finds out that she is half human, half goddess, and she is the only one who can travel to this land to secure it in a way that prevents the demons from being able to come to Earth. So this definitely has some interesting pieces and parts to it. I love that the Japanese lore, folklore, the legends, the myths, the gods, the goddesses, and I love that Momo was paired up with another character by the name of Danny, who she didn't really, they used to be close, but Danny doesn't get along with Momo anymore because he's befriended these group of kids that are not really kind to Momo. And she struggles with the idea of Danny now being popular and kind of pretty much forgetting about her. And then it just so happens that the two of them have to work together with this fox in order to travel to this spiritual land in order to protect the earth as kids. And you really get to see their relationship progress throughout the entirety of the book. And Momo's doubts about their relationship does come full circle and is used as an advantage and as a disadvantage for her. And I think that a lot of this is about her growth as a character and finding that self-confidence and really learning how to trust people again, because I don't think she has a lot of trust in people. I think one of the major hiccups about this one is that because there's so much folklore in this, it's hard to keep up with it. It almost feels like it's a little too much. I think that this is one, I always listen to fantasy. When I'm listening to fantasy on audio, I always listen to it slower anyway. But this is one that I listen to even slower because from the jump, it was like, okay, there's going to be a lot going on in this book. And so I may have a little bit of trouble keeping up with it. Not that I didn't find it interesting. I thought it was fascinating. And I found it alluring. I found it intriguing. And I ate it up. But I think that if this is clearly going to be a series, I think that we could have paced out the introduction of some of the myth and legend and lore throughout the rest of the books. I think throwing it into one book was just a tad bit too much, although I think younger readers are definitely going to enjoy it. And even though it was a lot, the pacing of the story was still good. Like, I still think it was like the epic journey that our characters go on, where they meet all of these different characters. The pacing of that was good, but it was kind of like, okay, I had to remember this, and I had to remember this, and I had to remember this. And so it also, I think sometimes it's requiring the reader to become familiar with the Japanese folklore, legends, and myths pretty quickly. And I do appreciate that the author doesn't hold your hand, but I wish it would have been spread out a little bit more through the course of the subsequent novels. I enjoyed this one. I think that there were bits of humor in it. I loved Momo's voice. Very, very strong voice. Even the points at which she was very insecure about her identity and her social standing at the school and her relationship dynamics with her mother, she does find that confidence and strength, and I like that everything wasn't always perfect. I love middle grade books that don't paint a fantasy of what that age group can potentially deal with at that stage in their life. And this is one of those books that doesn't paint a fluffy, bright and happy, perfect picture. We see Momo struggle a lot, and I think that just, for me as an adult, I appreciated seeing her recognize that struggle, internalize like what needed to be done to build that self-confidence, and then take the actions that were needed to build that self-confidence. The ending is a cliffhanger. Did not see that coming whatsoever. The connections between Momo and a relative were wild. Didn't see that coming at all. And so it definitely opens up the doors for a sequel, which I am excited to pick up, but we probably will not see that sequel until sometime next year, but definitely a 4-star read for me. Okay, the highlight of this video. This is why probably some of y'all clicked on this video. I ended up reading Corrine by Rebecca Morrow. This was a collab project between myself, Bethany, Mara, Mari, and Rachel. And Mara got the group of us together to kind of explore this. It's like a huge mystery that had been occurring on TikTok. This book came out July of last year, and quite frankly I had never heard of it until Mara had brought it to my attention, and so we all read it and we did a live show discussion on it, which I will link in a card symbol above. This one, it gave me so many conflicting feelings, and you can see how many different theories and conflicting feelings that we go through in discussing this book, and how each of us had so many conflicting feelings while reading this book. And I still am not sure what to make of this book. So a lot of people ask during live show, like, what is the plot of this book? There's not really a plot. It focuses on a character by the name of Corrine, and Corrine grows up in a fundamentalist Christian conservative household community. And when at some point her and her family, her mother primarily, and her siblings are forced to move into another main character, Enoch. If I never have to hear Enoch Miller's name in my life again, I promise you I will not be upset about it. So they end up moving into Enoch Millard's house with his family. And Corrine and Enoch develop this level of intimacy that they're not supposed to have because of the strict guidelines of their church. And so they end up having sex, and Enoch feels so guilty that he goes and he confesses. And Corrine is not really regretful about any of it whatsoever. And so she basically is kind of ousted from the church. And so we follow the dynamics between their relationship. I believe it's anywhere between 10 to 15 years later. I can't remember the actual number now. And after that, it's literally just us following them as they develop whatever it is. What's interesting about this book is that I've seen people describe it as romantic. I've seen people describe it as spicy. And as a person who doesn't primarily read romance but does read romance, I can tell you right off the jump, this book is neither romantic nor is it spicy. It is very grounded in realistic consummation of a relationship that is not stimulating, it's not exciting, it's very mechanical and cut and dry and awkward. It's very awkward, and it read as a book of someone who is trying to deconstruct but has not done all of the work yet to remove themselves from that religious trauma. And I think that people can connect to maybe some religious trauma that they've experienced. I've seen a lot of people connect to that. I didn't grow up necessarily in a strong evangelical household. I have my own confusion when it comes to institutionalized religion. I have talked about that before. I'm not going to deep dive into that. But I think that what's interesting about this is that if you read this as a romance, you're going to hate it. And even at me sitting right here and now having thought about it, and it's been talked about a little bit more in our chat, I still am not sure where to put this in terms of rating. I think I'm sitting at a 2.5 star rating because the writing itself was not good. The writing was not good at all, but I think that when I think about the ending of this book, which I'm not going to spoil it for you because if you're going to read it, you need to read it in its entirety and kind of make your own value judgments of it. But when I think about this book and I think about it in terms of the ending, it's very much so fitting the blurb that Jodi Picoult gave it, which is very Romeo and Juliet, tragic. It's not a happy ending because you have this woman, Corrine, who wants nothing more than to escape kind of the box that her religious community has put her in. You see that from the very beginning, that she feels very suffocated by it all. She is not allowed to grow. She's not allowed to flourish through the confines of this religion. And it's almost like she gets away, but by finding her way back to Enoch, it's that internal struggle again. Because Enoch is not ready to let go of his faith. He's not ready to let go of the church and his upbringing. And so that's just a constant conflict that she's going to have to deal with. But one of the major things that we discuss with this is that people automatically assume that this was Stephenie Meyer. And I think that when we discussed this, we also said we think that that was a plant. There's no way that Stephenie Meyer wrote this book. This does not read as Mormon whatsoever. As a matter of fact, this reads as a conglomerate of varieties of strict evangelical fundamentalist Christian religions. I went to a church as a child that was Pentecostal, and I saw some of those elements in there. And when we have the discussion, we also talk about seeing just so many of our different upbringings reflected in this work. And so I think this will be something that a lot of people, if you've grown up in strict religion and have experienced any type of religious trauma, you will see bits and pieces of that probably in this book. But I think that this book should have stayed. It should have stayed at home. This book did not belong to the public. I think this book belongs to a therapist. And we had some speculations about who we think wrote this book. I had my feelings about who I think wrote this book, but there has been some strong case for Rainbow Rowell having written this book. And it just is not. There's just hands down facts. It's not Stephanie Meyer, y'all. It's not. The writing style, just the way, the physical descriptions, which I think is probably what just blew my mind, is that Corrine described Enoch in such a physically unappealing manner that I questioned whether she was really attracted to him or whether she was searching for companionship and love because she had been conditioned not to feel as though she needed that, and also dealt with some abusive relationships when she had left the church. And a part of me felt like I wonder if Enoch was the only place where she thought she could get that love and safety. But she describes him as like a block. His fat fingers, and he's this long back, and he's just stiff, and I'm like, you're not describing him in attractive terms whatsoever. And so a lot of what we talk about too in that live show is like, is this someone writing this to either justify an experience that they had, whether they're living out, I don't know if it's a fantasy that they're living out, or they're trying to deconstruct and disassociate themselves with their religion and the church. But this illustrates that there is a lot of work that needs to be done. There's still a lot of trauma that has not been dealt with. It is not a pleasant joyride. I trying to figure out the purpose of this book is probably what stressed me out the most, because even sitting in this moment and filming, even after having a live show discussion, I still do not know what was the purpose and what was the intention of this book whatsoever. Because it can go in so many different directions, and without the author, who it says on the flap, this is a New York Times best-selling author who wrote this anonymously, there's no way to know. And so we're just speculating what the intention could be, and it is horrific, because I have my feelings, and my feelings about it are definitely like, I think that this shouldn't have been published. I think that this is all signs need to point to therapy and sitting down with a group of people to kind of discuss, like, what are you going through, and we need to talk about this, because this processing of what you're going through or what you've been through is not healthy. It literally is watching someone's religious trauma play out on page, and it is very cringe. And it's not healthy playing out. This is not a, figuring things out and coming to this moment of clarity and rebuilding and unpacking with therapy. It's none of that. It's very bleak and dark. And the writing just was not good. It was not good whatsoever. So 2.5 stars for me. I think that's what I'm going to go with, and I'm going to stick with that. I can't, y'all. I just can't. Like, I absolutely can't. This book was enough to put all of us in a reading slump if necessary. But yeah, after that portion, that L-hole of a book, I did end up reading some things for another live show, which I didn't do an announcement video, but I am participating in a year-long read along of James Baldwin's bibliography, and this is being led by Erica over at The Broken Spine, and I am reading this with her as well as Josh from Josh. Now I'm about to tear up your it's Josh's Bookish Voyage. When we were on the live show, Josh was like, yeah, I'm Josh from Josh's Bookishrealm. So now that's what Josh, like, that's what I want to call you, and it's Josh's Bookish Voyage, and the three of us are doing this together for a year. And so the first thing that we read was Notes of a Native Son, and then we read My Dungeon Shook, which is the first essay in the book The Fire Next Time. So I'm still reading this one technically because this second essay in this one we're reading for the month of April, but I did finish the entirety of Notes of a Native Son. This, brilliant. I would give it 5 stars, but I'm going to give it 4.5 because this is not an introductory to James Baldwin that I would recommend to everyone. I don't think that this is necessarily a good place to start with James Baldwin. This was written when he was about 30, so he was in his 30s when this collection came together, and I think that parts of this can be overly verbose. I think that it can be very academic, and it's not accessible all the time. The content of it is just so beautiful and so rich and so deep, and we had such a fruitful conversation about this book or this collection of essays, and it just made me excited to read more Baldwin because I think he's a complete genius. But I think that if I was to, and I haven't read anything else just yet, so I can't say, but I know that this was a very difficult introduction. I found myself having to reread passages and reread actual essays twice just to make sure that I was grasping what he was putting on page. And so I don't know if we're looking at in terms of accessibility, introduction to Baldwin, I don't know if this would be my primary pick, but I think that I enjoyed it. This is made up of, the essays, it's 9 different essays, no, 10. The first section of essays is his critique and commentary on the representation of Black people in media. So it's Everybody's Protest Novel, Many Thousands Gone, and Carmen Jones. So the first is commentary on Harriet Beecher Stowe, Uncle Tom's Cabin. Then Many Thousands Gone is his critique of Native Son, which I was not expecting the critique of Native Son that we got. Not what I was saying. I've never read Native Son, but I've heard such great things about Native Son that I was very shocked to kind of hear his criticisms of Native Son, but it made sense when he went through and explained his reasons as to why he critiques it. And then it was his critique of Carmen, which also I had not seen Carmen. The next section is primarily, I think, about the, sorry if you hear, I'm clearly, like I said, I'm not filming at home, and my room, my old room, is next to my parents' room, which their bathroom is right next to my wall right here. So if you hear that, I apologize. We just go work it. We work in it. But the next section is more of the experience of Black people in America. So it's the Harlem Ghetto, Journey to Atlanta, and then Notes of a Native Son, which is, it's also about the Black experience in America, but more so in relationship to his own personal relationship with his father. And then the last part is primarily looking at the experience of Black people overseas, and he primarily draws from his experience being in, I believe it's Paris and Switzerland was the second place that he'd been. And of course I'm not remembering this right now when I need to remember it. Yeah, I was like, what else I say? I'm pretty sure he wasn't in Paris for that last essay. He was in Switzerland. And that was in Encounter on the Seine, Black Meets Brown, A Question of Identity, Equal in Paris, and Stranger in the Village. So this, I'm not going to dive too deep into it because we definitely had a fruitful conversation about this, which like I said, I'll link in the card symbol above. But some of the themes that were explored in this that I think I really enjoyed were definitely this idea of internalizing racism. I think that's probably one of the major themes for me that meant a lot to me, because I know how much it has impacted me, how much internalizing racism and how people who are racist, their thoughts and perspectives of me, how I have internalized it and how it's made me view myself, and how I've had to deconstruct that internalizing of thoughts and feelings and definitely kind of build myself back up. I feel like it's evident throughout this entire collection that is such a major theme, and I appreciated that. It was also a major theme in the letter that he wrote to his nephew, and him telling his nephew basically like, you know, you're gonna face issues in this country because you are black, and it's as simple as that, but I don't want you to assume that you are who these people say you are because that's how they feel. Like, don't internalize those feelings, don't believe those things. And I think his letter to his nephew was filled with so much love. Like, it's something that I would tell my own child. And so just to see how much he poured his love and passion for his nephew into this letter, it was just so beautiful. But both of these, y'all, if you've never read Baldwin, oh my gosh, like, you're missing out. I didn't know that how much I was missing out, but these are so great. And I highly recommend that you go and you check out the discussions that we had about these two, and check in with us on, we haven't picked a discussion date, but I'm guessing it probably will be that first week of May, and I'm going to pull it up right now so you know exactly what we're reading. So in April we're reading Go Tell 'Em the Mountain, which is a novel, The Amen Corner, which is a play, and the essays that we're reading are An Open Letter to the Born Again, White Racism or World Community, and then Down at the Cross, which is the next essay in The Fire Next Time. So I'm excited. I'm really excited. I'm not going to rate this one yet because review this one yet because I've only read the first part, which is the letter to his nephew. So when I read the essay, then I'll rate and review. In terms of what I'm currently reading, this is one of the shorter weeks in terms of like weekly logs because I've read so much manga. Usually it's not this short, usually it's a little bit longer, but I've read so much manga that at this point that's why it's so short. That's been my focus. I am still reading Felice and the Wailing Woman. I'm still working my way through that. I'm trying so hard to have that finished before release date, which I believe is the 18th of April. So that's going to be a primary focus for me this upcoming week. I also want to, I don't think I'm going to be able to do it, y'all. I want to finish Delicious Monsters this week, but my audiobook hold is about to be up, and so I honestly don't think that I'm going to be able to finish it because I'm only 25% into it. I'm really enjoying it, but I'm not going to be able to finish it in enough time. I have too much time of that left, and I don't want to rush it for the sake of rushing it. So I probably will listen to a little bit of it and then put it back on hold and continue it. I am also still listening to The Omen, which is the second book in the Animal series by Quan. I'm hoping to get some more of that one this week, but I'm not as pressed because that one is included in my Audible program, so I don't have to rush to get to that one. But you know, the stuff on Libby is what I'm a little bit more pressed about because of the fact that I don't have as much time to read that stuff. But other than that, I don't know what I'm gonna get to this week. unfortunately, because it's 30 and 30, that's probably like my primary focus. But yeah, but other than that, that's pretty much it, y'all. Let me know in the comments down below what you've read this past week. Let me know if you're participating in 30 and 30. As always, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content from me, click the subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications. If you're looking for ways to follow me on social media, support this channel through Patreon, all those links will be down in the description box below, and I will be back with another video soon.